This section covers the following: distracted driving, aggressive driving and road rage, night driving, driving in adverse weather, railroad crossings, mountain driving, driving emergencies. Distracted driving is anything that takes your attention away from driving. You should always give your full attention to the road ahead. Distracted driving can cause collisions, resulting in injury, death, or property damage. Inside the vehicle, the following activities can be distractions and should be avoided while you are driving: talking on a cell phone or a CB radio, reading or sending a text message on a mobile device, talking to passengers, adjusting the radio or CD player, adjusting the climate controls, eating, drinking or smoking, reading maps or other literature, picking up something that fell, using other electronic devices, daydreaming or mental distractions. Outside the vehicle, traffic or road construction, pedestrians, police pulling over somebody, vehicles that are involved in a crash, objects in the roadway, reading billboards or road advertisements. Effects of distracted driving. Being distracted may slow your perception or delay your response time during traffic. It can also affect the decision-making process and change the way you respond to steering, accelerating, or braking. Types of distractions. There are various types of distraction. Physical distractions. These may cause you to take your hands off the wheel or eyes off the road. Mental distraction. These could make your mind wander away and take your attention from the road. A combination of physical and mental distraction. These are the most dangerous because they increase the chances of a crash. Cell phone usage. Federal regulations restrict the use of cell phones and may lead to the suspensions or disqualifications of your CDL license. To use these devices, they must be in hands-free mode. On large vehicles, the use of cell phones may cause you to take your eyes off the road for quite a distance and create hazards on the road. Your primary responsibility is to operate a motor vehicle safely. To do this, you must focus your full attention on driving. Texting. Evidence suggests that text messaging is even riskier than talking on the cell phone because it requires you to look at a small screen and manipulate the keyboard with one's hand. Texting is the most alarming distraction because it involves both physical and mental distraction simultaneously. Texting can also lead to fines and suspension of your CDL license. Don't drive distracted. Your main goal should be to eliminate all in-vehicle distractions before driving. Remove all in-vehicle distractions and develop a plan to minimize distractions in case a distraction occurs. The following are tips to avoid distractions. Turn off all communication devices or use your mobile device in hands-free mode or with an earpiece. Do not type or read a text message while driving. Get familiar with your vehicle's features and equipment before driving. Adjust all vehicle controls and mirrors before driving. Pre-program radio stations and preload your favorite CDs. Clear the vehicle of unnecessary objects. Review maps or program the GPS in advance. Don't attempt to read or write while you drive. Avoid smoking and drinking while you drive. Signs of distracted drivers. Vehicles drifting over divider lanes. Vehicles traveling at inconsistent speeds. Drivers who are preoccupied with maps, food, cigarettes, or cell phones. Drivers involved in conversations with other passengers. Aggressive driving and road rage. Due to traffic and tight schedules, it's not uncommon for drivers to take out their anger and frustration in their vehicles. Errors and mistakes can be taken personally and can lead to hostility behind the wheel. Aggressive driving is the act of operating a motor vehicle in a selfish, bold, or pushy manner without the regards for the rights and safety of others. Road rage is operating a motor vehicle with the intent of doing harm to others or physically assaulting a driver or their vehicle. To reduce your stress, take the following in consideration. Put on easy listening music. Give your drive the full attention. Don't be distracted by talking, eating, or talking on your mobile device. There may be traffic delays due to construction or accidents. Learn to adapt and deal with these situations. If someone is driving aggressively, give them the benefit of the doubt. Slow down and keep a good following distance. Don't drive slowly in the left lane. Avoid gestures that may anger other drivers. Be courteous with other drivers. If they seem to be in a hurry, let them by. What to do when confronted with an aggressive driver? The first thing is to make every attempt to get out of their way. Do not challenge them by speeding up and slowing down. You should avoid eye contact. Ignore gestures and don't react to them. Report aggressive drivers to the appropriate authorities. Driving at night. When driving at night, you may not be able to spot hazards as quickly as in the daytime. You may have less time to control steering and braking. Good vision is critical for safe driving. Factors that may affect your vision. Glare. Drivers can be blinded for a short time by bright lights. It can take several seconds to recover from glare. Fatigue and lack of alertness. This can be caused by physical or mental strain, repetitive tasks, illness, or lack of sleep. Crashes tend to occur at times when sleepiness is most pronounced. For example, during the night and in the mid-afternoon. Warning signs of fatigue. You may have difficulty focusing, frequently blinking or heavy eyelids, trouble keeping your head up, yawning repeatedly or rubbing your eyes, daydreaming or wandering or disconnected thoughts. You may have trouble remembering the last few miles you have driven. You may miss an exit or avoid a traffic sign. You may drift from your lane or follow another vehicle too close. You may hit a rumble strip on the road. You may feel restless or irritable. At-risk groups. Many heavy motor vehicle accidents occur between midnight and 6 a.m. If you notice any signs of fatigue, you should stop driving and go to sleep for the night or take a 15 to 20-minute nap. You may be at risk under the following conditions: sleep deprived or fatigue, driving through the night or long distances without rest, taking sedating medications, working more than one job or more than 60 hours a week, driving alone or on a long, rural, dark, or boring road. To prevent drowsiness before a trip, you should do the following. Get adequate sleep because adults need 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Schedule trips for the hours that you are normally awake, not the middle of the night. Drive with a passenger. Avoid medications that can cause drowsiness. To maintain alertness while driving, you should do the following. Avoid heavy foods. Have another person drive with you and take turns driving. You should be taking periodic breaks about every 100 miles or 2 hours. Don't depend on caffeine or drugs. Their effect will eventually wear off. If you are drowsy, the only safe cure is to get off the road and get some sleep. Roadway factors. Poor lighting. On most roads, you will probably have to depend entirely on your headlights. You might not be able to see hazards such as pedestrians, joggers, bicyclists, or animals. You should drive slower when lighting is poor or confusing. Drive slowly so you can stop in the distance that you can see ahead. Drunk drivers. Drunk drivers are drivers under the influence of alcohol or drugs. They are hazards on the roadway. Watch for drivers who have trouble staying in their lane. Travel at inconsistent speeds. Stop without any reason. Show other signs of being under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Vehicle factors. Headlights. With low beams, you can see about 250 feet ahead. With high beams, you can see about 350 to 500 feet ahead. When you're driving and visibility is poor, you must adjust your speed to keep your stopping distance within your sight distance. This means going slow enough to be able to stop with the range of your headlights. Otherwise, by the time you see a hazard, you will not have time to stop. Make sure that your lights are clean and working. Dirty headlights can reduce your visibility and make it hard for others to see you. Headlights can be out of adjustment. Have them checked and adjusted before you drive. Other types of lights. Make sure you check the following lights: reflectors, marker signals, clearance lights, tail lights, and identification lights. Night driving procedures. Avoid blinding others. Glare from your headlights can cause problems for drivers coming towards you. Switch your beams from low to high under the following conditions. Dim your headlights within 500 feet of an oncoming vehicle. Dim your headlights when following another vehicle within 500 feet. Avoiding glare from oncoming vehicles. You should avoid looking directly at the headlights of oncoming vehicles. Look slightly to the right at an edge marking. If other drivers don't put on their low beams, don't try to get back at them by putting your high beams on. Using high beams whenever you can. Use your high beams when it is safe and legal to do so. Use them when you are not within 500 feet of an approaching vehicle. Keep the interior light off and don't let the inside of your cab light get too bright. Adjust your instrument lights to allow you to read the gauges. Driving in fog. When driving in foggy conditions, your visibility can deteriorate rapidly. This can be extremely dangerous. You should reduce your speed and take the following in account. If you can avoid it, don't drive in fog. If you have to drive in fog, you should use your low beam headlights. Turn on your four-way flashers. This will give other vehicles an opportunity to see your vehicle. It is preferable that you pull off to the side of the road or a rest area until the visibility is better. Watch for other vehicles on the side of the roadway. Listen for traffic that you cannot see and avoid passing other vehicles. Driving in winter. Vehicle checks. You should prepare your vehicle for driving in the wintertime. Check for the following items. Check your coolant level and antifreeze to protect against freezing. Check the defrosters and your heating equipment before you drive. Check the condition of the wipers and washers. They should make good contact with the windshield. Check the tires for proper tread depth. For the front tires, it should be 432 and 232 inches for the rear. They should have enough tread to push your vehicle through the snow. Remove any ice or snow from the windshield, windows, or mirrors. Remove any ice from the shutters. Ensure that the winter front is not closed too tightly because this can cause the engine to overheat. Check the exhaust system. Check for any leaks because carbon monoxide can leak into your cab in the wintertime. This can make you sleepy, and if you breathe enough amounts, it can kill you. Driving in slippery surfaces. Driving in the winter will require you to adapt your driving. Keep the following in mind when driving in cold weather. On slippery surfaces, drive slowly and smoothly. Check for ice on the road, especially on bridges and underpasses. You should adjust your braking and turning to these conditions. Don't brake harder than necessary. Avoid using speed retarders. Take curves at slower speeds and don't brake while you are in a curve. Increase your following distance. When driving in heavy rain or deep standing water, your brakes will get wet. If the brakes get wet, the following can happen. The brakes can be weak. They can apply unevenly or grab. The effects of these wet brakes can be a lack of braking power. The wheels can lock up. The vehicle can pull to one side or the other. If you're driving a tractor trailer, you can go into a jackknife. You should avoid driving through deep puddles or flowing water if possible. If not, you should do the following. Slow down and place the transmission into a low gear. Gently put on the brakes and keep light pressure on them until you get out of the water. Maintain light pressure to heat them up and dry them out. Make a test stop to make sure they are working well. Driving in very hot weather. Vehicle checks. Check your tires. Make sure that the tire mounting and air pressure are correct. Inspect the tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles of driving. Remember that the tire pressure will increase with the temperature outside. Do not let air out or the pressure will be too low when the tire cools off. Check the engine oil. The engine oil will keep your engine cool and lubricated. Check the gauges and make sure the temperature is in normal operating range. Check the engine coolant. Check the engine cooling system that it has enough water and antifreeze. Never remove the radiator cap or any part of the pressurized system until the system has cooled. Check the engine belts. Check the V-belts for tightness. Loose belts will not turn the water pump or the fan properly, may result in overheating. Check the hoses. Make sure coolant hoses are in good condition. A broken hose while driving can lead to engine failure and even fire. While you're driving, check the road and watch for bleeding tar. Tar in the road pavement frequently rises to the surface in very hot weather. Spots where tar bleeds to the surface are very slippery. Go slow enough to prevent overheating. Avoid driving at high speeds. Monitor the gauges, especially the temperature gauge. The heat can increase the chances of tire failure or even an engine fire. Passive crossings. A passive crossing is a type of crossing that doesn't have a control device. The driver is responsible for determining when it is safe to cross. The general rule to follow is to stop 15 to 50 feet before the crossing. Look outside by opening the passenger door or the driver window. Listen. Ask for silence on the bus and listen for any train that may be crossing. Active crossings. A crossing that has a control device installed at the crossing to regulate traffic. These active devices can have flashing red lights, with or without bells, red lights, bells, and gates. Advance warning signs. They tell you to slow down. Look and listen for the train. The round, black on yellow warning sign. They are placed ahead of a public railroad crossing. Pavement markings. They consist of a white line painted on the pavement. They may have an X and the word RR. The school bus must remain stopped behind the line. Crossbuck signs. This sign marks the crossing. You're required to yield the right-of-way to the train. If there is no white line painted on the pavement, you must stop the bus before the crossbuck sign. This indicates the number of tracks you will be crossing. There might be flashing red lights and bells on the sign. Gates. When approaching a gate, you must stop when the light begins to flash. You should remain stopped until the gate comes back up and the lights have stopped flashing. If the gate stays down after the train is passed, do not drive around it. If this happens, call your dispatcher. All school buses must stop at railroad crossings and make sure it is safe before proceeding across the tracks. Slow down and shift into a lower gear if you are using a manual transmission. Activate your hazard lights 200 feet before the crossing. Scan your surroundings and stay to the right side. Stop no closer than 15 feet and no further than 50 feet from the nearest track. Place the transmission in park and set the parking brakes. Turn off all radios and noisy equipment and silence the passengers. Open the service door and the driver's window. Look and listen for an approaching train. When crossing the tracks, stop only before the first set of tracks. Proceed across all the tracks until you have completely cleared them. Do not change gears while you are crossing the railroad tracks. If the gate comes down after you have started to cross, drive through it even if it means that you will break the gate. If your bus stalls or is trapped on the tracks, get everyone out of the tracks immediately. Move everyone far from the bus at an angle, which is both away from the tracks and towards the train. Be certain that the bus has enough containment area to completely clear the railroad tracks on the other side. As a general rule, add 15 feet to the length of the school bus to determine the space after crossing the tracks. Stopping safely at railroad tracks. A full stop is required at grade crossings whenever the nature of the cargo makes a stop mandatory under state and federal regulations. Railroad crossings with steep approaches can cause your unit to hang up on the tracks. Never permit traffic conditions to trap you in a position where you must stop on the tracks. Make sure you get all the way across the tracks before you start to cross. It takes a typical tractor-trailer unit at least 14 seconds to cross a single track and 15 seconds to cross a double track. Selecting a safe speed. The effect of gravity. On an upgrade, gravity will slow you down. You will have to use lower gears to climb hills and mountains. On a downgrade, gravity causes the speed of the vehicle to increase. You will have to select a safe speed and use lower gears, and properly apply the proper braking techniques. You must go slow enough so your brakes can hold you back without getting too hot. If the brakes become too hot, they may start to fade or fail. Selecting the right gear. Shift the transmission to a low gear before starting down the grade. Don't try to downshift after, because you will not be able to shift to a lower gear once your speed has increased. This may lead to a loss of the engine braking effect. When going downhill at high speed, if you try to get into a lower gear, you may damage the transmission and lose the braking effect of the engine. Brake fade or failure. The brakes can fade or fail from excessive heat caused by using them too much and not relying on the engine braking effect. Brake fade is also affected by brake adjustment. Brakes can get out of adjustment quickly, especially when they're used a lot. Also, brake linings wear faster when they are hot. Proper braking technique. When traveling on a steep downgrade, the brakes are not the only way to slow down. By using the braking effect of the engine, you can save the brakes and avoid problems further down the road. Use the following technique. Make sure the vehicle is in the proper low gear. Apply the brakes just hard enough to feel a definite slowdown. Reduce your speed to about 5 miles below the safe speed. Then release the brakes. You can repeat this as often as necessary until you have reached the end of the downgrade. Steering to avoid a crash. Stopping is not always the safest thing to do in an emergency. You can almost always turn to miss an obstacle quicker than you can stop. Be aware during turns and when driving tractors with multiple trailers. They may go into a skid or flip over if you drive too fast or turn too sharp. During an emergency, you should keep both hands on the steering wheel. This will allow you to turn quickly. Avoid braking while you are turning. The wheels could lock up and you can skid out of control. Don't turn any more than needed to clear the hazard. Be prepared to countersteer. Turn the wheel back to the other direction once you have cleared the hazard. Responding to emergencies. If an oncoming driver drifts into your lane, move to the right side of the road. If the shoulder is clear, a move to the right will be best. This will avoid forcing another driver into opposing traffic and a possible head-on collision. Leaving the road. If you must leave the road in an emergency, remember that most shoulders are strong enough to hold the weight of a large vehicle. Avoid braking until your speed has dropped to 20 miles per hour. Gently apply the brakes to avoid skidding. Keep one set of wheels on the pavement to maintain control of the vehicle. Stay on the shoulder until your vehicle has come to a stop. Check your mirrors before you pull back on the road. If you are forced to return to the road before you can stop, hold the steering wheel tightly and turn sharply. Don't try to edge back gradually because your tires may grab and you can lose control of the vehicle. When both front tires are on the paved surface, Countersteer immediately. How to stop quickly and safely. You should brake in a way that will keep your vehicle in a straight line and allow you to turn if it becomes necessary. When making emergency stops, you will use one of the two braking methods. One method involves locking the wheels and the other will not. You must determine which method will work better in certain situations. Control braking. With control braking, you will apply the brakes as hard as you can without locking the wheels. Just before the wheels lock up, release the brakes. Stab braking. With stab braking, you will apply the brakes all the way and release the brakes when the wheels lock up. As soon as they start rolling again, repeat. In an emergency, the most important thing to do is to control your vehicle. Don't jam on the brakes. Emergency braking does not mean pushing down on the brake pedal as hard as you can. This will only keep the wheels locked. If your wheels are locked and skidding, you will not be able to control your vehicle. It is not recommended to use the stab braking technique on vehicles that are equipped with ABS. Brake failure. Most hydraulic brake failures occur for one of two reasons. Loss of hydraulic pressure. Brake fade on long hills. Loss of hydraulic pressure. When the system won't build up pressure, the brake pedal will feel spongy or go to the floor. You can regain control by downshifting. Shift the vehicle into a low gear. Pump the brakes. Sometimes pumping the brake pedal will generate enough hydraulic pressure to stop the vehicle. Use the parking brake. The parking or emergency brake is separate from the hydraulic brake system. Therefore, it can be used to slow the vehicle. Find an escape route. While slowing the vehicle, look for an escape route, an open field, a side street, or escape ramp. Turning uphill is a good way to slow and stop the vehicle. Escape ramps. Escape ramps are made to stop runaway vehicles safely without injuring the drivers or passengers. They use a long bed of loose, soft material to slow a runaway vehicle, sometimes in combination with an upgrade. You should know your ramp locations along your route. These ramps are not always available. If no escape ramp is available, take the least hazardous escape route that you can, such as an open field or a side road that flattens or turns uphill. Tire failure. Recognizing you have a tire failure will let you have more time to react. Having a few extra seconds can help you react and avoid an emergency. The major signs of tire failure are sound. If you hear a loud bang or a blowout, that can be a sign of tire failure. Vibration. If the vehicle thumps or it starts to vibrate heavily. Feel. The steering wheel will feel heavy. This is called cold steering. If your rear tires fail, your vehicle may fishtail unless you have dual tires. Responding to tire failure. When a tire fails, you must immediately hold the steering wheel firmly. If a front tire fails, it can twist the steering wheel out of your hands. Stay off the brake. Avoid braking until the vehicle has slowed down. Then, brake very gently, pull off the road and stop. Unless you're about to run into something, stay off the brake. Check the tires. After you've come to a stop, get out and check all the tires.